Wish I could be outside more, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But with all, looks like you've not had, you guys have COVID down pretty good. Any recent outbreaks or things like that that are?
No, we've been really well. So touch wood. So just hoping we're just about to open a trans-Tasman bubble, which should be great. So I think there's a whole lot of Kiwis looking forward to doing a bit of travelling. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so let's,
heard.
we're right on 8 o'clock. So a warm welcome to Sharran, and thank you for everyone for joining us this morning for another great session with Sharran, who will share some really great insights. So we've got a few people on already, but no doubt there'll be a few more that will join us. So Sharran, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you again for this morning, and on for your presentation.
All righty. Well, very good. Thank you, Ed. And I'll tell you this: one thing for everybody, just as an aside, I know a lot of you as you're listening to this are probably either live or on catching it on the recording. And Ed, one thing for you and the leadership team is everyone's been really good about the ones that catch it on the replay have been sending me emails about it, which has been great. So thank you for doing that. If you are catching it on the replay and you get something out of it, you're welcome to share a note, because that way we actually know that you caught it. And if there's a thought or a feeling around it, that's a very healthy thing. So I know a lot of people are catching it on the replay, which is a good thing. But the one thing that I want to share today is over the last 3 weeks, I've had a lot of conversations, both emails from folks on the commercial side as well as principals, managers on the residential side across Bailey's. It's been great. And I want to talk about one thing which I think is very important as we go through this really fast moving market, and we say, well, do our agents have the tools? Do our agents have the resources? Do our agents have the discipline? Do our agents have the mindset? We all agree that there is a big mindset game at play here. And I'll tell you the conversations that I'm having with the managers or the leaders that I'm talking to one-on-one or that are emailing me are all centered around this one thing, which is they're helping agents do better, right? And that comes down to the question that we have to ask is that we are almost like a doctor right now. And I think the one thing that I want to walk you through today is the same conversation that I'm helping your peers around the Bailey's network do, which is how do you diagnose a problem? I don't see any issue with any of us being able to solve a problem. If an agent came to us and said, well, what do I do? Instead of just saying, well, you should do more 10 before 10, or you should call your commercial landlords more, or you should do something else, instead of going to the symptom and the prescription right away, what does the doctor do, right? There's a process of diagnosing the problem. And what I want to offer you is when you diagnose problems all day long, you get very good at diagnosing problems, but that doesn't mean that a doctor is really good at diagnosing a problem, but the doctor still goes through the similar questions. Hey, how are you feeling? Is your knee hurt? Does your head hurt? Do you have headaches? Have you been eating? Any other symptoms? There's a reason why we ask those questions. And what I want to tell you today is I want to give you a formula, a cheat sheet on how you can diagnose problems much faster, because I know that when you're given a good problem, I know you can solve it. So I'm going to give you a very quick one-page cheat sheet on how you can diagnose any problem, because otherwise we can't really help anybody. And that's the big part of today. So you may see this, it may be a little small. Don't worry about it. I set it up this way only for one reason, so that when I do send Ed the PDF, he can share with you and it's still a one-pager that you can hold on to, as opposed to I know that you're not going to print off 10 slides and flip through it. I know you're not going to do that. So I want to make this easy for you, which is why I've changed my presentation style. So let's dive into this, right? When an agent approaches us, instead of instantly going to the solution, instead of instantly telling them, hey, are you doing your 10 by 10? Are you getting more appraisals? Are you knocking on more doors? Are you calling all your buyers back to see if they have homes to sell? Are you actually keeping your vendors in line with the changes in market expectations? What are you doing, right? Instead of having that conversation, I want us to figure out how to diagnose the problem. And today I'm going to show you about a very simple 3-step process. If you can use this, and it doesn't matter whether it's an agent. By the way, my wife knows this process, and she'll say, are you diagnosing the problem with me? Like, she knows that. Like, we use this often because it's the same process that happens. And so there's 3 big reasons how you diagnose a problem. And I will tell you, If I can present you with the exact problem, I know you can come up with a solution. So let's dive into how you thoughtfully diagnose a problem. A lot of you may have different ways, but I'll give you a very simple way that I follow. So the problems fall into 3 categories. And if we don't get the category right, we will actually end up not getting the solution right away. So here's how you think about it. The first problem, most of the time, is a purpose problem. And the purpose problem is that they will never tell you that they feel that way, because adults who are highly motivated will never tell you that they don't have clarity. They will never tell you, but a lot of them do. And the problem around this purpose problem is that they're just unsure of what their future looks like. They feel unclear. They will ask you questions like, well, what should I do in this situation? Or why should I do it this way? You'll figure out a lot of what and why questions. And they will think, they'll say things like, oh, I want to think about it, but they won't take any action. The purpose problem is very easy to figure out, and there's a way to figure it out. And the cool part in this diagram is I've given you 3 little green check boxes, which is tick marks, which is exactly what you need to follow, which is this. I always start every conversation with the same exact question because it teases out the purpose problem. And the conversation is this. I want to see if they have a plan, because if you have a plan, you don't have a purpose problem. Right? If you have a plan, you don't have a purpose problem. Here's the one mistake that leaders and managers do that I suggest we don't do. I suggest we don't ask the question, well, have you done your business plan for the new year yet? Do you have a 90-day plan yet? I would suggest not doing that, because that puts the agent on the defensive, whether or not they have done it, and that makes them feel like, well, I didn't do something. Now Mark's not going to like what I did that I didn't do, and now it puts the whole conversation in a tough space. You want to change that question up, because I want to figure out if there is a purpose problem. And here's the question to ask. The question to ask is, hey, so if I was talking to Paul, I'd say, Paul, what are the top 3 things that your business plan focuses on this year? Put the business plan separate. What are the top 3 things that your business plan focuses on this year? Or you can say, what is the one top thing on your 90-day plan? Now, whether or not they have it, they will tell you the top thing that they have. When they have that, and that if that answer doesn't come out in a crystal clear fashion, you know that there's a purpose problem. I would not go into calling 10 before 10. I would not go into more skills. I would not go into fixing their mindset. I would not go into anything before that. I would literally stop right there and say, hey, why don't we spend 5 minutes and actually build out and write some bullet points of what a 90-day plan would look like. You can build a plan together with them right there, because when they don't have purpose, the other 2 things don't matter at all. I will tell you right now, 50% of our agents right now are camouflaging their purpose problem with the other problems. And that's because we have not put the pressure on them to actually deliver that. So my offer to you would be, let's not discuss process, tactics, strategies, etc. if they can't deliver a quick version of their plan. And normally when I ask somebody, hey, what is the top thing that you want to focus on this year? And if they can't instantly tell me, hey, I want to do 4 more sales, I want to get 12 more listings, if they can't give me that, they have a purpose problem and they don't have a plan around it. So the first thing I always ask for is, I want to ask the plan question, because I want to figure out if they have a purpose problem. The second thing is, if they have the purpose in place, then it becomes a what to do problem. And I call that a process problem. Right? This is where most of us shine, and we think that a lot of the advice that we need to provide is in the process world. We always think that they want tactics from us. We think that they want it. They may, but if they don't have the framework in place to implement those tactics, they're going to keep coming back to you with the same excuses. Right? And it doesn't matter if it's, I actually say, I know we have a couple of commercial leaders on the line. It doesn't matter if it's commercial or residential. The purpose problem is very similar for both areas. Right? So in a process problem, they'll ask you a lot of how questions. They're like, well, how do I answer this question? How do I get more stock? How do I figure out the pricing pressures? How do I figure out the fee pressures? How do I get a PA? How you'll hear a lot of how problems. How do I do something? But the key in the process problem is figuring out, I don't even try to solve it. Like when someone asks me, well, how do I get a PA? Most of the leaders, what they do is they'll literally start to say, how much do you want to pay them? What do you want them to do? When do you want them to start? They'll literally go into solving that problem. And I don't go there. You don't want to do that, because there's a big challenge in the how. And the how is, you don't know if it's one of 2 things. You don't know if it's a capability problem. They probably already know. but they're just not willing to do it. My job in the process is for me to figure out, do they actually know how to do this? Do they actually know that this box connects to this box, connects to this box, connects to this box? Do they actually know the steps? Do they actually know it? And so the way you tease this out is, once they have a plan and then they tell you, how do I do something? You ask this very question. You don't solve the problem. So when someone says, well, Mark, how do I hire a really good PA? Well, if someone says that, I literally will turn around and say, well, Sharran, that's interesting. Well, could you walk me through like how your day-to-day workflow goes? Then I'll figure out where your PA fits, because now I want to know, hey, I'm doing these things and this is where I'm blocked. When you ask somebody, can you walk me through X process? Can you walk me through when you bring on a listing? Can you walk me through when you go to an appraisal? Can you walk me through something? They will tell you how they do it. And if they can't give you the steps, you know their steps are broken. Then you can actually address that. They probably don't even need a PA. They just probably need a better checklist for launching a new listing. A lot of times, that's all it is. I was talking to a Bailey's team, and they were telling me, hey, I get this new listing that sells really fast. And I said, well, why? Well, I think I need to do better marketing. And well, now I can give them better ideas, but I didn't. I said, you know what? I said, well, walk me through your process on how you bring a new listing to market. They said, well, we have no time. We just bring the listing on and it automatically sells. I was like, well, you can't do that, right? What's the process? And then I realized as they were walking me through the process, they didn't have a very good process. They got the listing, they put it on the market, and now they're mad that their listing sold really quickly and they weren't able to generate more marketing from it. So I said, hey, it's okay to slow down that process by 2 days if you can do things a little better. Can you do a little pre-launch? Can you say this is coming in a couple days? Can you call your database first? And once you put those steps in place, you'll figure out whether it's a process problem or not. So I always ask, before solving someone's process, ask them, hey, could you walk me through this first? That way you understand where the hole is. Our job is to be the surgeon or the doctor that says, I figure out that's the place where I need to solve it, let me solve it, as opposed to me giving you all the answers in the entire process. So that's the process problem. But I'll tell you, this happens probably, the third is the pressure problem, and this happens probably 2 out of 10 times. This is the kind of the hidden devil, if you will, where most people don't know this exists and they feel like, oh, you just have to work harder. So I'll give you what this pressure problem means. Most of the time, people have a plan. Most of the time, people know how to execute the plan. But a lot of times, they don't do it. Why? We know our agents, they have a plan. They actually know how to execute the plan, but they don't do it. Why? And what we think that they need accountability. But it's not necessarily the case. Just because I have to report my numbers to Philip every day doesn't mean I'm going to report my numbers to Philip. It doesn't mean I don't fudge those numbers. But why? The why is really, really important, because there's something else in their life that is preventing them from actually executing on it. That's why I put this little green tick box here. There's something else that's preventing them. And the faster we figure that out, the faster you unlock everything, right? And then that's why I want to know, is there some other pressure somewhere else in their lives that is spilling over? And I'll tell you, this is a true Bailey's conversation. I was talking to a Bailey's leader, and she was telling me, she's like, well, Sharran, I know my plan. I actually follow what you gave me. I know what I should do, but sometimes I have a hard time doing it. And I said, there's a lot of confidence in that. Like, thank you for being super honest that you're sharing that with me. Like, is there some pain somewhere else in your life? Like, is there a struggle somewhere else? Like, is there something that you're avoiding? She's like, what do you mean? So this is when I asked her, is there a tough conversation that you should be having with somebody that you haven't had yet? Or is there a financial struggle somewhere else that is struggling? I said, you don't have to tell me about it. I just want to know if there is something. And you know what she told me? She's like, Sharran, there's a person in my life that that is a close friend that has actually like not been a good friend to me, and I just need to separate myself from that relationship. And because of that, it's really weighing me down. And literally, she knew what to do. She had a plan, but she was just weighed down by an external pressure. Now, I could have given her all the tactics in the world. It would have not meant anything if I had not diagnosed that being the pressure point that I needed to release. So I didn't say, okay, so when are you, are you going to talk to her? No. I said, well, why haven't you had a chance to chat with her yet? She's like, well, it's a difficult conversation. I said, no problem. Do you think you're going to have that conversation with her today? She goes, no. I go, okay. Do you think you're going to have a conversation with her this week? She's like, that'd be nice. I'm like, great. Do you think you're going to have a conversation with her this month? She said, definitely. I said, awesome. So now I've put a timeline on her ability to solve that pressure. None of this is like extreme psychology. Our job is just to remove the block so that the agents can go do what they already know how to do. And all I did was be able to say, okay, so she knew that this month she had to do, so she self-committed to doing that. I said, well, is it going to be this week or next week if it's this month? She's like, well, this week, maybe next week. I said, well, how about this? Just pick a day. She's like, you mean to pick a day to talk to this person? I said, no, pick a day by which you're going to get this done. She's like, before next Friday. I said, great. After you've done, just send me an email saying done. That way I'll know you're done. Now I gave her a little framework to reduce the pressure, right? The power in all of this is our job is to thoughtfully diagnose the problem. It is all about thoughtfully diagnosing the problem as opposed to instantly turning around and giving them a solution. Because the faster we can diagnose the problem, the faster we know how we can create the shift for them. Especially if it's a bigger producer, it's really, really powerful to say, hey, how do I help people solve this problem? And is it a purpose-based thing to get a plan? Is it a process-based thing to get a how? Or is some other pressure in their life? If you can start to get into that mode of asking those three questions, you'll know very quickly your coaching conversations with agents will go so much faster. And they'll say, man, how is Sam able to read my mind? That's when you know that you've started to really figure it out. So think about, I'll send you the one pager, but always start with a plan. Once they give you the plan, they're going to ask you a how question. If they ask you the how question, say, hey, can you walk me through this process? Once they walk you through the process, there will be a glaring hole. Ask them why they haven't fixed that hole. There's generally some other pressure point. Solve that pressure point and everything will fix itself. That's how you coach as opposed to just giving them an answer, right? That's why this gets very powerful. So hopefully that very simple way of diagnosing a problem is helpful. That way it becomes a lot easier and you get a deep bond with the agent and they will be an agent with you for life because that's where the good stuff starts to happen. So I will share the one pager with you and maybe I can get some feedback or questions for the next few minutes.
Thanks, Sharran. That was fantastic. Some really great learnings there. I mean, just some things I took away from that is obviously not taking assumptions, making assumptions, digging a little deeper, and those three categories of purpose. You know, what are the top things that the agent is looking to achieve in that perhaps the next 90 days? The process, getting them to walk you through their process, and pressure, looking at what's happening in their lives. So I'm just gonna fantastic learnings, and I'm just gonna open that up to the group to ask Sharran any questions. Thank you.
Awesome.
Oh, just a comment from me, Sharran. I think that's Ray and I just looked at each other when we're talking about, you know, there's another blockage in their lives, you know, and quite often they know what to do, they know how to do it, but there's that blockage. So it's actually, yeah, it's a really good insight to just actually, hey, what is really going on? What else can we help with, you know, and trying to help coach them through that.
Yeah, awesome. Mark, I'll tell you this. Like a lot of us have been taught to go to accountability right away.
Yeah.
And when someone is stuck, as you will know, when there's pressure in some other part of their life, and now you add accountability to it, now there's pressure in some other part of their life, and you've had your pressure too. Now there's double pressure. Now they're not going to perform, and now they're going to feel guilty for not performing.
Yeah.
That's very painful. So that's why, and by the way, we're like that too, right? The days that we are down, something else is on our mind. You know, our kid is sick or our elbow hurts or whatever, right? And I think that's when the solving the outside pressure is when powerful things really start to happen.
Yeah, and getting absolute clarity. Our job, as you say, is to remove the hurdles for our team. The more hurdles we can get out of their way, make them go faster, away we go.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, when I was talking to your sister, like literally that was a lot of it on the recruiting side was let's not try to pitch Bailey's right now. Let's just try to like get as many appointments. Let's clear the hurdles, because as soon as they realize that they don't have any stock left, they're going to say, well, I might as well move right now. So it's, even in recruiting, it's just clearing all the hurdles right now. Even though they're not going to move today, let's just clear all the hurdles, because once they think about it, you become the choice.
Sharran, this is a little bit off piste, but when there's a blockage or a problem and you know what the problem is, so for example, if somebody is fundamentally lacking empathy with themselves, with clients, with staff in the office, how do you simply approach that when it's very difficult to say to somebody you have just no empathy? How do you get around that, guys? I don't know.
Yeah, really, really great question. Um, so the question, I think, Philip, you broke up a little bit. So if we're walking through a situation and you actually figure out that the empathy is the problem in kind of their lives, how do you think through it? Philip, that's hard. That's difficult. And I'll give you one way, and maybe we can kind of talk through that way. My one way generally, if I know, whenever I know that I want to bring out a certain emotion, like if it's empathy, or if I want to bring out determination, or if I want to bring out fire, or if I want to bring out curiosity, my job at that point is to try to revive that emotion that they have had at some point in their lives, right? And so you think, you're like, hey, so tell me about a time when, I'm just curious, tell me about a time when something, when it really impacted you, when it really made you feel sad, when it really, like, you're asking them for a deep emotional connection. And then don't expect them to answer. And you say, so if I was talking to you, Philip, I'd say, Philip, I want to hear about a time when, can you think about the first thing that comes to mind, when a time that, like, you felt extremely happy or extremely sad that someone had helped you? By the way, Philip, don't answer the question. Let me tell you about one thing that happened to me. So what I'm doing there is I'm giving you a question, but I'm giving you the gift of going second, because I want to put myself in there first. And I say, I want to tell you about a story with my dad. This and this happened. I didn't realize how cool of a guy he was. I thought he was a macho guy. I thought, he was brave. But then I saw my dad crying for the first time, and it made me cry for the first time. And that's when I realized that it was okay for me to cry. And that changed my relationship with my dad. And I don't share that with other people often, because I think, our vulnerability is a part of our humanity. While I was telling you that, is there something that comes to your mind that, that really got a really high emotional change for you? And I'm really trying to bring something out, because if that happens, you're triggering something to open up a new emotion.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. Any other questions for Sharran? Hey, that was a great session, Sharran. Again, thank you very, very much for this morning. Thank you for everyone that's joined us this morning, and have a great weekend, and have a very happy Friday. Thank you.
You got it. Thanks, Ed. Ed, I'll send you through the PDF as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharran. Thank you.
See Maggie. See Phil.
Very good.